Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina, where we talk real business, real embodiment, and the real behind the scenes of creating a non-alcoholic empire rooted in integrity. My name is Marina. I'm your host, and today's episode is one I've been sitting with for a long time. Because visibility, it's not just a marketing strategy, it's a nervous system practice. And most people don't talk about that part. So if you've ever found yourself saying, I want to be seen, but then maybe you shrink back when people are actually watching you. Maybe you find yourself saying, I want to grow, but you find your body shutting down when it actually starts happening. Or maybe even you found yourself saying, I want to lead, but you feel disconnected from your team or your community. Then please know that you are in the right place, because we are diving into what it really means to train your nervous system to hold more visibility, to become the leader your people need, and to operate in full alignment, even when, and especially when, you feel like you're being misunderstood. So let's get into it. This first part is all about understanding that visibility isn't just about being seen, but it's about being felt. Most people think visibility is about algorithms, or lighting, or networking, or being louder. But real visibility, the kind that magnetizes opportunities, people, capital, loyalty, transformation, that kind of visibility is energetic. People can feel when you're safe in your own skin. They can feel when your message is fully embodied. They can feel when you're sharing to serve and not to prove anything to anyone. And they can definitely feel when you're trying to hide, especially while claiming you want to be seen. Visibility is about resonance. And you can't resonate with others if you're rejecting parts of yourself. So I want to ask you, what parts of your story, your leadership, your decision making are you still hiding? Are you editing yourself because you're afraid of being misunderstood? Are you dimming your voice because you're afraid people are going to walk away? Are you posting from performance or from presence? Because the truth is, if you're afraid of being seen, you're also afraid of being paid. Visibility and revenue go hand in hand. So the nervous system, it's here to help us, right? But it's also the gatekeeper of our growth. So let's talk about your nervous system a little bit here. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You're not inconsistent. You're likely dysregulated. Because if you are here listening to this podcast, you are one type of person. And we're all different types of people. I get that. But what I'm saying is, y'all have something in common here if you are listening to this episode. You are not an unmotivated, lazy, inconsistent motherfucker, right? Like, you show up and you genuinely want to put time and thought and presence into your craft. That's why you're here, because you're learning and growing, right? So that means that you are dysregulated. And when you're expanding, like when the opportunities start coming in, the team starts growing, the pressure starts building, it's not just about strategy anymore. It's actually about capacity. Your capacity to receive, to hold, and respond. And this is why so many founders burn out in the scale-up phase. They're chasing bigger goals with the same nervous system that was trained for survival. When your body is stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or even fawn, you will, like you 100% guaranteed will self-sabotage your growth. Like, it's so sad. You are going to push it away. You're going to downplay your wins. You're going to hide when the spotlight is finally on you. And then you'll wonder why it still feels so dang hard. But here's the good news. Your nervous system is trainable. You can teach your body how to stay calm in the face of big visibility. You can teach your mind how to pause instead of panic. You can lead yourself through the expansion instead of running from it. And here's the how. Take a nice deep breath with me. Stop trying to be understood and start trying to be wise. Okay? I know especially younger me felt so upset. I needed the last word if I felt misunderstood because I wanted one more chance of making it right. But what did that do for me? I poked the bear. I tried to stay clung on to something that wasn't the right alignment. It took years to figure out what was actually self-sabotaging versus, what was me researching? What was me learning about life, right? Trust me, there are plenty of lessons everywhere, right? And growth is aplenty. So if you're looking for growth, you don't have to do it in the worst way, right? You don't want to push away and downplay your wins. So stop trying to be understood and start trying to be wise. Now, all of that being said, let's talk about where leadership plays into this. Like, okay, Marina, you're telling me to be wise. Okay, but what does that mean for helping people? So leadership must start in a place of neutrality. Like, that is where you will find wisdom, right? So being misunderstood is not a crisis. It is an invitation, right? It is an invitation to create a new standard, set a new boundary, write a new SOP, refine your messaging, clarify your offers, anchor deeper into who you actually are. We're not here to be palatable. We're here to be principled. And if you're constantly getting derailed every time someone misinterprets your content or disagrees with your decision or doesn't get it, then what you're saying is, my ability to lead is conditional on being liked. Let that sink in. My ability to lead is conditional on being liked. That's gross. I'm so sorry to tell you and help you bring this to the surface if this is something that you are dealing with, but it is gross. It's not something that's going to help. And it's okay to let it go because real leadership is unconditional. That doesn't mean you become cold or robotic, but it does mean that you stop outsourcing your emotional state to other people's projections because your role isn't to be everyone's best friend. It's to be the anchor, the safe place, the visionary, the one who can see the future and walk towards it, even if you're walking alone at first. So let's talk about how this shows up, like specifically in real life. Let's ground this back to reality. So here's an example. I had a client once who got their first viral post, like thousands of likes. Hundreds of thousands of views, comments rolling in, sales spiked, right? Sounds like an exciting thing to happen, but she spiraled. Not because of the hate. In fact, there was a lot of love, but it was because of the attention. The sudden influx of eyes on her was so intense that her body interpreted it as actual danger. So even though she was mentally very excited, her body was literally shutting down. Like she had to ghost her own business for a week after having the biggest sales rush of her entire career, of her entire life. It was more money than she'd ever made in her entire life. And it freaked her the frick out, right? Not because she didn't want it, but because her nervous system wasn't ready to receive it. So we didn't make another funnel. We didn't build another launch, but we built resilience. We trained her body to feel safe with that level of visibility. We took some time and stopped focusing on strategy of the business, but strategy of the culture of the operation, because as we mentioned in our last episode, there are three very important things to having, like three very important aspects to having an effortless operation, right? Visibility, systems, and culture. So what happened was she did have the systems. She was able to take in those orders. That wasn't the problem. And she had the visibility set up because clearly she was able to go viral. So she did her homework. She set everything up. But the thing about the cultural aspect of her company was that this was the first time she was ever a leader in this sense. She had been a leader as a manager on other people's teams, but she had never been the owner before owning that whole process. And that freaked her out. And it wasn't because, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with this money? It was all of a sudden you don't even realize what expectations you put on yourself. You're like, okay, well, is this sustainable? Is that just one time that's going to happen, or is this going to be my whole life? All of a sudden, you really start to learn what type of person you are because your inner monologue starts to show you some weird things. I know when one of our programs first started to be more visible and we were trending for Bula Boss for the first time, like people were finding us because they'd heard the term. Like I'm telling you, like it was like 50 people a day were typing this in and finding our website. And that was weird because I was like, where did I say this? Like where is this coming from? And I realized that I felt uncomfortable being seen where I didn't know where it was coming from. Whereas when I knew where the traffic was coming from, I felt very comfortable because I was worried that I was wearing somehow a different mask for each different situation. And I was worried that I would put the wrong mask on in the wrong room. You know what I mean? And those of you who are neurodivergent, potentially autistic, really know what I mean, because that's the context I'm saying it in. Because those of you out there who are like me, sometimes in order to deal with social situations, you know, we put on our best self that we possibly can, and we're pushing through the pain because maybe we're not feeling so social, but we're happy to be there. It's just, you know, we're also not happy to be there because our bodies need something else, right? And that is an example of your nervous system needing something else. You can't be present. Why is that? Right? Because you have to learn how to build that resilience. So back to the client, we trained her body to feel very safe with that level of visibility. We rewired her relationship to attention, and within a month, she was asking for more. Confident, clear, collected. So the whole point is, if you want bigger business, you need a stronger nervous system. Okay? So it's going to be a lot like going to the gym. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm not going to tell you one particular thing today. This episode might help. You might feel really great right now, and I'm so happy for you. Ride that high, baby. But like, if you want that to be a long-term sustainable energy, right? Because visibility is not just literally with our eyeballs or our ears, but it's energetic. So if you want to be able to hold that energy, we need to strengthen ourselves every day. If you need a trainer to do that, I'm here for you. But let's continue, okay? Because I want to be very clear, like visibility is not the same as vulnerability dumping. So being seen doesn't mean that you owe the world your entire diary, right? Like you don't have to give up your privacy, but you do have to give up your mask. Ow. It hurts. I don't want to give up my mask. And I'm going to be real with you. Before I continue, I'm going to tell you guys the story. So my legal name is not Marina Mars, and it's not even Marina Castillo, because Marina is a nickname. Where did it come from? When I first started performing and teaching, dancing, all the things, I developed a stage name, which is Marina Mars. And it's a character, but it's not. You see, the difference between performers who are able to make a career versus the ones who are more of just seen as hobbyists forever. Hobbyists always put on masks. They played other people's characters. I never did. I simply called out I wanted to create a character of myself. So I simply called out the features of myself that I wanted to be flamboyant with and labeled that as Marina when I was like 19. And then I grew into who I thought Marina Mars was, and now that's just who I am today. You know, my family still calls me by my birth name and all the things. There's nothing hateful about it. It's more so like in my situation, I felt like I couldn't put down the mask because when you are on the spectrum, there's a lot of things that go on in your brain, and if you let everything happen and you don't filter, then you can get really overwhelmed in public settings, which makes it impossible to become a performer. So I had to learn how to make my nervous system handle it. How so? Well, I didn't put myself in situations that would stress me out. I didn't force myself to talk with everybody. And in fact, before performances, I would put in my headphones and I wouldn't talk to anybody. That wasn't my networking or socializing time. For other people, that's how they got gigs. For me, I chose to keep that moment to myself, so I was cool, calm, and collected on stage, and then I would do my networking after the event, or I would show up early, depending on if I knew people were showing there. So point of that is, in order to give up the mask, I had to give up the triggers that forced me to put that mask on. And by giving up those triggers, I mean, like I said, I adjusted my schedule, or I adjusted how I behaved in order to easily move through that trigger, right? If I know I'm going to be triggered, okay, well, let me bring something delightful. Let me have a kava, right? So there's a difference between hiding and holding boundaries, right? You can keep sacred things sacred and still show up in full power. Because when you're grounded, your presence speaks louder than any post ever could. So let people feel your leadership, not just read your caption. And if you are misunderstood, well, good. It means you're moving. It means you're pushing edges, and it means you're no longer willing to play small. So I want to give you a new standard operating procedure, okay? Every misunderstanding is a mirror. And instead of spiraling, I want you to systemize. And I want you to ask yourself, as if you are taking field notes, you are a researcher, and you are some weird little alien taking notes on your weird little human life, and you're going to literally remove yourself from yourself for a second, okay? And you're going to ask, little alien part of you is going to ask little human you and say, hey, what was the disconnect? Like, what needs to be clarified? What expectations need resetting? Like, why was I all up in my feels? What process do I need to refine so I never receive that type of feedback again? This is what I mean when I say, like, you don't take it personally, you take it strategically. Like, you evolve in real time. Because when you stop reacting and you start refining, you become like a living SOP, right? You are the template. You are the culture. You are the energy that people calibrate to. They don't even need to read the manual to understand how to respect you in your business. That is like breathtaking, right? And that, boss, truly is the deepest form of visibility that there is. So, if you're in a season of expansion, if you're being called to step up, show up, and lead in bigger ways, I want you to remember this. You do not need to be louder. You need to be safer in your body. You need to practice visibility like it's a muscle, not a moment. And every time you're misunderstood, take that as your cue to create more clarity. Do not shrink. Because true leaders don't chase being liked. They choose to be known. And there's a big difference between being liked and being trusted. So if today's episode landed for you, please send me a DM on Instagram at Mocktails with Marina, or send me an email, hello@marinamars.com, and tell me what part hit hardest. And if you're ready to start leading like the version of you that you know that you're becoming, the Effortless Operations Starter Guide might be your next step. Go ahead and take a look at the description for the link there, because it's not just about systems, it's about sovereignty. So go ahead and grab it, and I'll go ahead and see you next week, boss.